This might not seem like a frightening story to many, but for me, even now when I think back, it still makes my skin crawl. A few months ago, a friend invited me to a social mixer. At the event, I locked eyes with a guy, and we hit it off right away. Our conversation flowed easily, and I had the sense he felt the same way about me. We discovered we had similar interests, and he lived not far from me. As we chatted, I learned he liked the same restaurants I frequented. Because of all this, I felt like I'd reconnected with an old friend I hadn't seen in a long time. At that moment, I thought to myself, I wish I'd met this man sooner. I imagined that after this evening, maybe we could create some beautiful memories together. When the event ended, we happened to take the same route home. His place was just 2 stops after mine, so we rode the train together and talked some more. When I got off, he came with me to wait for a taxi. As we were about to part ways, my heart pounding with nervousness and hope, I braved asking for his number. I said I wanted to see him again. He smiled and told me to give him my number instead. I gave it to him, and he sent me a text right away. He said, "All right, now you have my number. Hurry home safely." Then I got in my taxi, and as soon as it pulled away, I took out my phone to save his number. But when I saw the name associated with that number pop up on my screen, a cold sweat broke out on my cheek. The name showed as Pervert Stalker. That name sent my mind spiraling back years, and not in a good way. You see, ever since I moved into my current place years ago, I'd been getting harassing calls. I had no idea if the caller was randomly dialing, or where they got my number. There was one particular number that called me every day and night without fail. Sometimes in the day, sometimes in the dead of night. When I answered, the person never said a word. I even vented and shouted at them once, but no response. The calls just kept coming. Once I let the phone sit next to me after picking up, just to see how long the silence would last. 3 hours. 3 whole hours of nothing but heavy breathing and creepy noises through the receiver. Sometimes, the calls would end with a few sinister laughs before they hung up. I never understood their intentions. All I knew was it made me feel sick to my stomach. So I saved that number in my phone as Pervert Stalker and ignored any calls that came from it, or unknown numbers. After a few months, the calls finally stopped. That was over 2 years ago. So imagine my shock when I saw that same number again now. Under these circumstances, I stared at the number, my mind flashing back to the man I'd just chatted with, the one who liked all the same restaurants I did, who seemed to know my tastes and interests like an old friend. A terrible thought hit me. Could he have been secretly following me, watching me, learning about me all these years? The idea made my skin crawl. I immediately blocked the number. A week later, I moved. I just couldn't bear the thought of running into that man on the street someday, not knowing what he wanted or why he'd do something so terrifying and disgusting. Minus going back even further to when I was in 2nd grade. My father ran a factory, and thanks to his hard work, it had grown to an impressive size. But back then, when I was just in 2nd grade, he'd and me just started the business. There were only 2 employees. One was a guy fresh out of high school, with a fierce menace-looking, Greaser Menace-style hairdo, a classic troublemaker who seemed to be coasting along. The other was a young man who worked hard every day, genuinely dedicated, because the factory was just getting off the ground. My father didn't have money to rent a proper facility, so, naively, he had built a small one-story workshop on the empty lot next to our house. That workshop was right beside our home, but because my father's employees were still only ever moved around the workshop area and basically wouldn't come into our house, so our daily life was really affected. One day, I was halfway through school when I suddenly felt unwell all over. I went to the nurse's office, and the pretty nurse there told me I had a fever. She called my mother, and after that, I was allowed to leave early and go home. Because our house was close to school, my father happened to be out delivering goods at the time, and my mother, after hearing I was sick, went to the pharmacy to buy medicine, so I walked home by myself. When I got home, I figured my mother would come back soon, so I didn't lock the door and just headed upstairs to my room. I crawled under the covers to rest. While lying there in my room, I suddenly heard noises downstairs. Someone was walking around the house. I thought it was my mother returning, so I got out of bed and went downstairs, planning to take my medicine before going back to rest. But when I walked into the living room, the last person I expected to see was there, not my mother, but one of my father's employees, the guy with the buzzed highness up hair. He had his back to me and was pulling open the drawers in our living room cabinet, as if searching for something. I froze when I saw him. He immediately turned around and saw me too. He seemed really startled to find me at home. We just looked at each other silently for a few seconds. Honestly, my fever made my head foggy, and I didn't fully understand what was going on. I was scared but couldn't be sure what he was up to. Then suddenly, he spoke. "Hey, if you saw what happened here today, can you keep it a secret for me?" I glanced at him, and that's when I noticed the large wrench he was gripping tightly in his hand, the kind you use for work. Even with my fuzzy brain, I immediately got how serious it was. I was terrified and nodded repeatedly without stopping. Then, without another word, he left the house and went back to the workshop. From that day on, I wanted to tell my parents about what happened, but I was too scared. I was afraid that Big Brother, that guy, might go crazy and hurt me or my family, maybe even worse. So I never said a word. After that, every month when he got his paycheck, that buzzed minus hair guy would bring snacks to our house. He said something about being grateful to my father and wanting to show appreciation. And every time, he'd smile at me. Though he was smiling, I could still see dangerous, murderous intent flickering behind his eyes. He'd always hand me a bag of treats and say, "Here, these are for you." At the time, I didn't understand why he always brought me snacks, but every time I saw his smile and the way he stared at me, I was terrified. So I would always keep my head down, stiffen my body, and silently accept the treats. My parents would just smile and tell him, "The child is a little shy, don't mind it." This continued for a long time, and the memory of that day stayed heavy inside me. Eventually, that buzzed minus hair guy left my father's company. Now that I'm an adult, finishing summer vacation and about to leave for college, I heard recently from friends that he moved to Tokyo and joined a Yakuza gang. A while ago, he was arrested for criminal activity and might be locked up for a very long time, maybe forever. When I heard that news, I finally felt freed from fear. I suddenly felt so free. I also heard from my father that this guy had a habit of stealing. When he had money, he'd waste it all on gambling and pachinko. He often caused trouble when drunk. The reason he left my father's factory was that my father caught him stealing scrap materials to make money. People said ever since he left the town, the string of theft stopped completely. When I heard my father tell these stories, my mind flashed back to the moment in the living room when I had locked eyes with that buzzed minus hair guy, how he clenched that big wrench until his hand turned red. That image still haunts me like a shadow. After having gone through something like that, I've come to believe that encountering ghosts is nothing. Because in the end, it's humans who are truly terrifying. This is the story surrounding me under certain man. Maybe it's not a horror story in the usual sense, but it made me believe curses really exist, and they come back to harm you. Back then, what part of the audio is it? I was in a relationship with a man, serious enough to be toward marriage. He worked in sales, and because of his job, he often had to attend social events, and he needed to travel abroad frequently for work. Though we didn't see each other often, we still managed to meet once or twice a week. At that time, I loved him deeply. I admired his mature way of thinking, his outstanding work skills, his gentle kindness, and how he always had his own steady pace through everything. Our relationship was simple and calm, but it worked well. After we'd been together for a long time, I began to imagine marrying this man. Then one day, he proposed to me. I said yes right away. I honestly felt like the happiest person in the world. We picked a date to get married and planned to visit the banquet hall and try on wedding dresses. But on the day I was supposed to try on my dress, his phone kept ringing non-stop. After he answered, he suddenly told me the company had urgently sent him on a 3-day business trip that night. He apologized to me sincerely and left first. I thought about how, even at a moment as important as this, he still put work first before my feelings. That had always been how he was. But still, a certain sadness and frustration grew inside me. I felt powerless, but I didn't show it. I knew that no matter what I said, some things couldn't change. Later, I tried on the wedding dress alone, went home. Despite everything, I still felt happy and lucky to be marrying the man I loved. 3 days later, the day he was supposed to return from the trip, I wanted to surprise him. I bought some fresh vegetables, planning to cook a meal for him at his place. As I neared his neighborhood, I suddenly heard a familiar voice. I thought maybe he was just about to come home. I turned the corner, feeling excited to greet him. But instead, I saw his back. He was walking toward his front door, but there was a woman beside him. I also heard the woman say to him, "We're about to get married, and you're still lying to your girlfriend about going on a business trip. But hey, you're so handsome, I can't help but like you." In that moment, my mind went blank. I stood there, watching their silhouettes. The woman had her arm linked around his, and they walked right into his house. I felt my heart shatter. I crouched in the corner of the street, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. Years of hidden frustration, pain, and anger welled up inside me, ready to burst. I thought every time he said he was on a business trip, it was a lie. He was actually on dates with other women. My anger exploded. That night, when I got home, I found a website offering curse services. Without overthinking, I contacted them and signed up. I remembered that woman praising my boyfriend's good looks, so I told the curse workers to make his face uglier the better. We discussed what kind of ugliness, scars, strange boils, or something equally grotesque. As I talked, I thought if his face became disfigured, he'd lose all other female attention. Then I could care for him fully, and maybe he'd depend on me more. But oddly, as we planned the curse, my hate softened, replaced by a strange hope that he'd really become ugly. A few days after the arrangements, one evening I was having dinner with him when suddenly I felt dizzy. The world spun violently, and I fell off my chair. In the fall, my face struck the floor hard before I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. My boyfriend was by my side, deeply worried. He told me my nose was broken. He'd lost 3 teeth on the spot, and had a large bruise across my face. Yes, my face was disfigured. The diagnosis, a sudden anemia attack, had caused the collapse. I was hospitalized untreated. Afterward, he devoted himself to caring for me every day until I recovered. We had our wedding ceremony, and I married him smoothly. But his face didn't become ugly. He was as handsome as ever. The one who became disfigured was me. My face bore permanent scars. Maybe the curse had failed, and the effect had reflected onto me instead. Since then, my anemia hadn't improved. In